Call the Executive Body Board to order for Thursday, November 30th, 2023. In accordance with the provisions of Chapter 2, the Acts of 2023, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, public bodies otherwise governed by the open meeting law are temporarily relieved from the requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. That is quite the sentence when you really think about it. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may participate remotely by joining Zoom meeting ID number 854-0032-4335 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at ATM at Ayer.MA.US or 978-772-8220 extension 100 prior to the meeting. All right, thank you, everyone. So the first item on the agenda for today is the review and approval of the previous meeting minutes from April 11th, 2023. I did not have anything that was earth-shattering and required changes. Okay, if there's no changes, can I get a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Excuse me, roll call the vote. Mr. Pomfriand?
Aye.
Ms. Tierney?
Aye.
Ms. Cooper?
Aye.
Ms. Antonellis?
Aye.
Ms. Freskowski?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. Thank you. Final review and update of the financial policies is next. We've been talking about this for a few months, so let's get into the meat of it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Through you. So we have, as you mentioned, we've been working for some time on the review and update of the financial policies, which were last reviewed and updated on in August of 2019. Since the BI board last met, the policy, draft policy was sent to all town departments for an interdepartmental review, which Barbara coordinated, and there were no substantive changes or additions to the draft that the BI board was at. So we wanted to, the final two steps in the process would be for the BI board to make a recommendation on the policies, to go to the select board and the finance committee for their review and final approval. And once the select board and the FinCom vote to approve, they would be in place. So I don't know if there are any from the BI board, any final changes or suggestions before we send it to the FinCom and the select board.
I don't have any changes. I know we spent a lot of time looking at these through last winter before we unfortunately hit pause as a board, primarily just because of my work schedule. So I don't have any changes to what's presented.
Again, through you, Mr. Chair. Please. Again, just the highlights. Obviously, there was a lot of language cleanup in the document. We added on page 6 the information about the town budget calendar, which we've been doing as a town for the last few years, but wasn't in the policy. We also added in there a section on page 8 that references the cannabis tax right under the meals tax. Again, since the last revision, the policies were silent on the cannabis tax. We added, which was formalized since the last revision, but we added on page 9 through 10 under employee compensation, we added the town's policy and process for the COLA recommendation each year. Under the we added, expanded upon the OPEB section on page 12 to make sure that it is compliant with updated OPEB. On page 13, we also added a section on the Urban Development Action Grant, the UDAG, for clarification. We also added, same page, the reserve fund for future payments of accrued liabilities for compensated balances as approved by town meeting in 2019. Let's see. Then under the capital finance section on page 16, a substantive change we talked about at length is the threshold for something requiring a debt exclusion, a capital exclusion, increasing that to 500,000. And if the buy board will recall, we discussed over the last year how the costs of goods, services, and projects from the previous threshold of 300,000 have increased significantly. So this would be to sort of keep in line with that under the capital finance, so that there's an increase there. The investment policy, on recommendation of Barbara, on the advice that she has received, and the previous version had the whole long town's investment policy. She was advised, by the auditor and others that she works with, that we reference the investment policy with the language that is in here that also shows reference to the website. But because the investment policy, which is the purview of the treasurer, changes slightly from year to year, this was a recommendation from the auditor there. And I think we updated the procurement through Carly and others just to be current with state statute on page 19. And I think that those were all of the sort of substantive changes. Most of them were updating the policies based on things that have changed since 2019. And just to point out again, I think one of the biggest changes is the increase to the 500,000 from 300,000 for the debt exclusion. So just to refresh everybody's memory, that was sort of a quick overview of the changes.
Thank you, Robert.
Thanks, Robert. Any questions or comments before we make a recommendation? Pauline?
I hope this works. I don't know if you know, Scott, but I've had trouble you guys hearing. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, good. I'll have to thank Verizon for that. I have two, not concerns, comments, things I'd like to see in the financial policies. When they were first created, I remember working with you, Scott, and Brian Muldoon to create them. And I distinctly remember having something called a TIF policy. And forgive me if I missed it, but I don't see it in this new and improved document. And I know, having asked in the past about it, there's no TIF committee, there's no active citizen review of TIFs, and so on and so forth. I'm not asking you to do that right now. I just would like to begin a conversation about that, because it's important, I believe, for the taxpayers to understand what these TIFs are about. I will go back in all of my papers and see what I can find. But Scott, I guess I'm going to beg your indulgence. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we do reference TIFs on page 8.
But in a general sense, not in a specific TIF review.
Yeah, I think the challenge with the TIF review committee was actually getting one together. I
Yeah.
think it's worth looking at for the next iteration, or at least having that conversation. I will say, looking at the current version, even with the debt exclusion being 500,000 sitting on capital planning, there's definitely inflation that's causing, I think, more and more requests from the capital to be like right at that threshold for a capital exclusion. So I think maybe next year we might have to look at some of these items in the policies to clarify and probably bring up to date even in 1 year's time.
So it's just sticking with TIF for the moment, even if it's not a full-fledged committee, if it could become a regular discussion item on the capital planning committee and or by board agendas, just so we don't lose sight of it. I know there are so many regulations when companies get TIFs. I think we only have one open. I don't remember if there's another one open, but a citizen can't even go on the website and find anything. So I just want to make sure we don't lose sight of it. Really, that's all I'm saying with TIF, more than creating another committee. We have committee heavy. So that was one item. The other I talked about before, and actually begins, I think, on page 14 under capital planning, talks about the composition of the committee and so on, which I have asked about in the past. But specifically, under the charge, paragraph 2.1 on page 15, and I have my notes from our last conversation, whenever that was. It is highlighted on the new draft, the February 21st draft. And back when I asked about this before, I asked what the current balance was. And the answer, if I remember correctly, and I didn't write that down, so I apologize, was, well, we don't use that fund, or we don't have that fund. And the language must have come from another town's document or something like that, which is fine. But in all honesty, I like the idea of a capital expense fund, and it's in the policies. And I would really like to see during this budget process, if maybe there's a way we could work that into the budget, so that there's ready cash available, doesn't require a 2/3 vote of town meeting to spend, and departments have access should they need it. And if they don't need it and the money is there, according to the policy, it stays there.
I can address that if you'd like.
Yeah, please, Barbara.
So the wording, you correct, Pauline, it was from an old existing policy when the financial policies were first put together. This was wording that had been borrowed from another town, and it was after reviewing this and speaking with auditors and S&P, we realized it was a redundancy. It was another term for a capital stabilization fund, which we have established and we mentioned elsewhere in the financial policies. So after talking to, again, our auditors and S&P, their interpretation and recommendation was to put the wording that's now in there, that the intention here was that the debt service expenditures should be limited to 8% of the operating revenue. This was more saying that we don't want our debt service to be more than 8% of our overall omnibus budget. And that we believe should have been the intention in this paragraph.
Well, that's not what it says. It says an amount equal to 8%, and I'm not saying it should be 8%. I'm just reading from the proposal, shall be appropriated into a capital expense fund, implementing the practices subtle, blah, 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 and it goes on to comparing to the capital stabilization.
So it did. So do you have the current draft?
I do. I have the one Robert sent me this morning.
Oh,
So which page? Sorry, Pauline, because I'm having trouble. I see the 8% in paragraph 2.1, but I'm having trouble.
It's page 15, Scott.
Yep.
Yeah,
Scott, I think Pauline is looking at some of her old notes. So
I think
No,
so.
no, this is the document Robert sent me this morning. I printed it today.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at 2.1 and I don't. So okay, so we'll just
I'd be happy to read the wording in the current draft, and you guys can tell me if you're seeing the same draft, because that might be the issue. It might be an older draft that you're looking at. So the 2.1 paragraph updated verbiage says the debt service expenditures should be limited to 8% of the omnibus operating budget. To maintain this benchmark, the town should schedule future debt service to coincide with maturing debt service. So that's what the intention was, and we found that using the CEF was a redundancy of the capital stabilization, and it was causing confusion. So what we did is we clarified our intention here. I used with the wording directly from our auditor and S&P recommendation, and then we removed the actual CEF capital expenditure fund wording, and because it was a duplication of our intention of a capital stabilization fund. So I apologize if you have the wrong draft. Would you like me to email you a new copy?
No, not at all. It's not necessary. But I fully understand and comprehend everything and the rationale behind what has been said, and that's fine. I don't have any issues then. I too
good.
saw it as a duplication of effort, but I thought in my world as a citizen taxpayer, it's, I think, smarter for a town to have a fund available that does not require a 2/3 vote of town meeting to access. And that's where I was looking. I was looking at ease of
Okay.
taking care of problems that arise that occur during the course of the year, and therefore not having to impact the reserve fund, which is, I don't know, much less than 8% of the budget. So those were just my comments, and I thank you, and I'm so glad you all could hear me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Any other questions or comments on the policies? Okay, so do I have a motion to approve to send to, or sorry, to recommend to the select board and the finance committee?
So moved.
I second that.
All right, roll call the vote. Ms. Antonellis,
Aye.
Mr. Friskowski,
Aye.
Ms. Tierney,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Aye.
Ms. Pombriand,
Aye.
and the chair says aye. All right, they are recommended for our select board and finance committee. Thanks everyone for all your hard work and diligence on this. Next item on the agenda is update on the ClearGov budget platform. I believe Ms. Antonellis is going to take us through this.
Yep, I'm gonna have some assistance from the town accountant, Carrie Cooper. Carrie, do you want to share your screen and just give an overview? And then I'll go into more of the department specific. Yeah, so you should be able to share your screen. Yep.
Can everybody see it okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So basically, I am in the editor tab of our new ClearGov platform, and I have done a lot of different categories that's kind of like in ClearGov itself. You just have to kind of download and put the information in. So as you can see, I kind of took this off the internet and took the same exact wording that's off our website for our history. And then on the second page is basically the demographics, which basically this information comes from the different data sources. Like this is the American Community Survey 5-year estimates. This is stuff that we do not add in. This is actually from the internet in their database. The rest of the information, again, I have entered from, like, this was from our recent budget book that Carly put together for FY24. So I just downloaded it, and all the way down through the information like the residence guides, same thing. Our budget processing calendar, I have put through the current town funds, our financial policies. Because it was so big on our website, it would be a link, because that will just like direct us to our recent financial policies that have been approved. And then again, the glossary, same exact thing, all of the wording that Carly had in the FY24 budget book. As for the budget overview, this information was downloaded as well, but we're gonna do some work on it because this information will actually come from our summaries and our import that we put from our financial software into ClearGov. But at the time, we did not have it uploaded. And then again, like Carly's information that I took from our budget book, but this was just like a trial run of the statuses of all of the information that we needed for FY24. As we go further down into the fund summaries, this is the information that would actually come from the download that I did that would put the information right into the categories of where it should stand. So we have our Munis reports, but it goes into charts and graphs for the water enterprise, sewer, solid waste, and ambulance fund, and so forth. And as you see, we can do the same as for the revenue as well. The revenue is all the information. We only do actuals. I could put in the budgeted amount, but we don't put the budget into Munis. So our budget, we will be relying on probably PDF format, PDF format into the budget book. And then Carly, do you want me to keep going on departments or do you want to take over?
I can take over from here.
Okay.
If you want to just stop
Yep.
share and then I'll pull
Yep.
mine up. Okay. Oops, is that on my email? Can you see
Yep.
it or is it just
Yeah,
my
we can see
desktop?
ClearGov.
You can see this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right, so for the departments, what we've done is we've asked all departments to fill out, you know, kind of what's on the website now gives a description of each department. This is gonna like modernize everything and make it look uniform. So we have a photo of the department head. We have their description of services, their mission statement. We're just about done uploading these. I have a few more to do, but you can see, so the town accountant, you know, there's the mission and whatnot. And then it will show their budget for each department and then a historical perspective. And then we can add different categories, expenditures by fund, that's there. So basically expense type you can see and get, you know, go deeper in. As the user, you'll be able to differentiate if you want a pie chart or a bar chart. There's also just a million different categories of charts and views you can activate as the user. This, you're seeing it in editor mode right now, so it's not like completely web friendly at this point, but I'll get to that in a second. So as a user, you know, resident, you want to go in and download the budget book. So what we have, and I'm just gonna go back here. If you go to a web preview, it's going to show, oh, I'm in the wrong.
Nope, you're okay.
Okay, yeah. So basically you can print or download a PDF of what you want to see in your budget book. So you can select all, you can, you know, just check whatever you want, and then it's going to show up in the book. So I did, let me just pull this up. This is the total budget book, everything downloaded here. It's 405 pages, table of contents, and then it goes just what Carrie had showed, downloads, you know, all the demographic data. And then I'll just pull up, I know like the town planner is here, so you can see the mission statement of the department, again, the functions and services, what the budget is, and then you can, you know, yeah, you can see the line item budget, like the omnibus. So there's a lot of functionality to it, and it allows the user to customize how they'd like to see the data. And so Carrie and I have been getting the hang of it, and we're making good progress for sure. And we're excited. Carrie's uploaded everything into, Carrie, how current are you on everything?
I just updated as of 11/22.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna stop my share if I can find that button. And I can't, I don't know what's going on. Where's that bar? I don't know where it went. All right, so I'm gonna try to figure out how to stop my share here. Hold on. Okay, yeah. So that's just an overview. I'd say like we're about 90% loaded. We have some stuff to clean up, but we just want to give the buy board an overview of what it's going to look like to both, you know, how we're going to be editing it on the back end, and then what the user experience is going to be.
No, that's great. Thank you. Just curious, going forward, like annually, when we have the new budgets, et cetera, how long do you think it would take to update the website?
So the data for the ClearGov.
Yeah.
So Carrie basically runs a report for Munis, and she sends it over to ClearGov. They upload it. Carrie, you can speak to that probably more as far as
Yeah,
time frame.
it's kind of a little bit of a procedure. Basically what happens is there's numerous steps. There's 10 steps that you go through. You basically first you would you have to fill out a request online, fill out all the information. It could be an account change, it could be an update of data. There's a lot of formatting. And then what they do is they'll go through the tasks and they'll ask you what you want to update, if you want to update your actuals, your budgeted, and so forth. But it usually only takes maybe like 2 or 3 days total to complete the 10 tasks.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get in the habit of at least doing, because I mean, I just finalized FY23, so I wanted to make sure I got those numbers in there. So FY23, those are the actuals, hardcore, dead center numbers for FY23. But the FY24 budgets, I've had some, like the encumbrances, they will be in there as a revised budget. So they've updated those as well. So I'm going to try to get in the habit of like a, you know, semi-annual by fiscal year, like do it maybe July 1 and then January to just keep up on top of the numbers.
Can I just add in real quick? So when Carrie and I were doing the planning meetings with ClearGov, they said some people do it once a year, some people do it twice a year, some do it quarterly. So that can really be a decision. I don't know if the executive by board would want to chime in on that, how often we'd want it updated, and just keep in mind the amount of work that's pretty much all on Carrie. But they said it varies, and it's actually an individual choice to the town.
Okay. Thank you. Robert?
So Carly, Carrie, what are we thinking in terms of a potential timeline that it would be ready to go live? And what I mean by live is that, you know, the public would be able to access it as well as all of us. And I know it will be a work in progress, and there'll be tweaks and so forth. And what's I think nice about ClearGov is nothing is completely etched in stone. We can customize it. But what are we thinking? I know we're about 90% uploaded.
Yeah, most of all the data is in there. We just have to clean up you know, set what we want as the final look. There's some funds in there that, like the postage fund, I don't think necessarily needs to have its own department page, though it's a line item in the budget. So Carrie and I are going through that stuff now. We could go live as soon as we're done that process, and it will be for the FY24 budget. So people can see it kind of as it rolls out the rest of the year. So I would say within a month, we could probably get this online. That's certainly, I would say, right after the new year. Don't you think, Carrie?
I think so. I mean, like you said, all the data is there. for the FY 24 budget. It's really not going to change anything,
Yeah,
for that, like you said, it's there, the numbers, but the data will be from 11/22, the expenditure part of it for
yeah,
FY 24.
Okay. I think that makes sense. Maybe, and we can discuss further. We could also maybe announce it at the first budget presentation in January or something. So yeah, I think we should shoot for the January timeframe.
definitely.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else on the ClearGov? All right. Next item is the FY 2025 budget process update. Mr. Pomfriand?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So on the budget process update, just real quick, as everybody knows, because you're all involved in many aspects of it, we are well underway for the FY 25 process. We'll talk about in a minute the budget directive, but the budget directive is scheduled per the calendar to go out tomorrow to all departments, along with their budget sheets that Carrie has prepared. They'll have from December 1st to the deadline of December 29th to submit their initial draft budgets in. During that time, myself, Barbara, Carly, Carrie will be meeting with departments. Once we get everything in on the 29th, there's about a 10-day turnover per the calendar, so it'll be the beginning of January. We will be sending the draft one of the budget to the FinCom and the Select Board, and to the public. It'll be posted. The FY 25 budget page is up already on the town website and is slowly being, populated as things unfold. I just want to point out that on Tuesday, December 5th, will be the tax classification hearing as part of the Select Board meeting with the assessor and the Board of Assessors regarding the tax classification. Also, as the chair knows, he is the chair. The Capital Planning Committee is moving forward. There's actually a meeting this evening at 5 o'clock with the Department of Public Works, which is one of the larger capital committees. And there'll be subsequent meetings of the Capital Planning Committee as we move forward. The Rate Review Committee is looking to have its first meeting December/January with respect to the water and sewer rates as we move forward. The last thing, Mr. Chair, I just want to point out that I think the BI board and many of us should be cognizant of has to do with the FY 25 school assessments from both schools. I'll start with the Ayer Shirley Regional School District. As many of you know, Dr. Renda and his team appeared before the Select Board on November 21st to give a presentation on their entitlement funds, their federal funds, specifically entitlement funds that fund many programs and some personnel positions through the years. And what is happening is their federal funding, and I'm simplifying in the interest of time, but the federal funding in that area has been decreasing largely because the economic demographic situation in Shirley has changed. Though Shirley continues to struggle, it's not struggling at the level under the federal metrics that it was. So in essence, it was at the meeting, it was an update of this situation that the Ayer Shirley Regional School District is looking to shift some of these core personnel and services that were traditionally funded by federal entitlement grants, shifting it to their budget, which in turn would increase their assessment. And Dr. Renda indicated they're developing a 3-year plan to do this. I said at the meeting that, and everybody seemed to agree, that we need to actively work with them and Shirley on this plan, and that we can't just wait till February for them to come and present the assessment as they normally do. They didn't have the specifics yet, but I think the takeaway is that the assessment has historically, in recent years anyway, been in the 2 to 3% increase. And it sounds like that's going to be higher, not only based on increased costs that we're all seeing, but this plan to begin to shift off of these entitlement grants. And there is a presentation, it's in the select board packet from November 21st, which is online. But I think that we should, as a by board, and I know with the select board and the FinCom, continue to discuss this, because the final issue that some of you know is we are in a much more competitive position financially on the ability to pay, whereas Shirley is not. And I already know informally there's a lot of concern from Shirley about this. So I wanted to bring that up. Secondly, on the Neshoba Valley Technical High School side, their assessment, this one is much clearer to follow in black and white, but we anticipate, we don't have the specifics yet, that their costs, like everywhere, have also gone up. But as more students continue to go to Neshoba, as everyone on this meeting knows, that if you have more students, your assessment tends to go up. So I think the takeaway is, especially the last couple of years on the ASRSD side, we need to be mindful of increases beyond the last couple of years being put forth on both school assessments. And what does that mean in terms of our overall budget and financial position, but also the town of Shirley. So that's the sort of the snapshot, Mr. Chair, just on the budget process update.
Thank you, Robert. So I know I could not attend the meeting on the 21st for the select board. So I didn't actually look at the packet. Is there a dollar amount that they're looking to shift over from the grant funds? No?
Not yet.
Okay.
It is
Just curious.
considerable to the point that they're looking to do it over a 3-year period.
All right. Because I know usually they have tried to keep the assessment increases smaller because of Shirley.
Mm-hmm.
So then Ayer. So it'll be an interesting spring, I guess, when it comes to school funding.
It'll be like the old days.
Absolutely. Kurt?
Robert, so federal, for what I'm hearing is on the first point, the federal funding is decreasing. So would that, looking at raising the assessment, would that be in Ayer and Shirley, or just in Ayer?
It would be both, Kurt. So
Okay, that's what I figured. I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is that as the federal, we're seeing a decrease in the federal, and they're looking for us to make it up in both Ayer and Shirley over 3 years. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, the assessment is based upon percentage of student population. So Ayer, I think, generally sits between 55 and 58%, and Shirley has the rest. But to Robert's point, Shirley has had some fiscal challenges over the last 15 years, maybe ish. 20. Yeah. Yeah, before our time here, Robert. So the early days of the regional school district, the increases on the assessment were probably 5 to 6% as they were trying to get their footing in place. And there was this hold harmless calculation that played into that also. But the blowback on the school budget has generally been from the Shirley side of things, because it's a more significant increase to their tax base than it is to ours, because they have a much smaller tax base.
Yeah. Just another question. Robert, did Doctor mention if he's looking, if there'd be any chance of getting that federal funding restored or increased, or in other sources?
He was asked by the select board at that meeting that very question. He has indicated that they have been in contact with Congresswoman Trahan in her office, as well as they've sent a letter and have been in contact with the state legislative delegation as well.
Good, thank you.
What I was thinking, and we can think about this, but historically, as we know, it's usually the middle of February when they come down, the Ayer Shirley Regional School District come before a joint meeting of the Select Board and the FinCom to present the assessment. And I know the last thing everybody needs is more meetings, but maybe we should consider having, and also the FinCom is, and Dr. Renda said this, he'll meet with anybody, so I'd be happy to meet with the FinCom. To date, they've only met with the Shirley Select Board and the Ayer Select Board at this point, but he'll meet with the FinComs, which is a good idea. But perhaps we should maybe have a joint meeting, maybe before the end of the year or right after the first of the year to sort of begin to talk about some of these specifics. And I can reach out and see where they are on that. My fear is I think we need to see what the whole picture looks like sooner than later.
So is your concern primarily what the assessment increase is going to be just for this year, or is it over the full 3 years?
It's obviously this year, but frankly, it's all three, because one is two issues, I think. One is obviously, what does that impact mean to Ayer and to Ayer taxpayers? We obviously want to know that. But secondly, as you know, Mr. Chair, even better than I do, we're in this relationship of Ayer, Shirley, and the district. And when if Shirley can't pay their portion, we need to have a plan. And I'm not advocating that we in any way pick up that, but some of these programs, these core programs, really are for critical needs in the district. And that's another question too. I think we have to look at, some of them are positions, some of them are services and programs. I think the sooner we can work together, I think the better. I guess my biggest fear is I don't want to be at the joint meeting with all of you in February and boom, here's the assessment.
Right, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I do think we should stress with the district that they should provide as much information as possible, even on a preliminary basis, as they're working through the process. If they know how much they need to shift, which then, even with a estimated assessment increase over last year, just so we can build it into our preliminary budgets. As for, Shirley's ability to pay, because the process, when the assessments come out, the process is it gets approved by both town meetings. If Shirley town meeting doesn't approve the budget, if I remember correctly, the school district goes back to the town meeting in Shirley, asking them, whether they make changes or they just say this is what it is. And then at some point they can trigger what's a super town meeting, so to speak, where it's everyone gets together and votes one way or another in a single location. And we've never come to that. I think we came close once.
We've come close, but yeah.
Yeah. So, and then if that passes, Shirley just needs to find the money, because it's an assessment, whether they increase their, they do an override or they have to make other cuts within their budget. So I share your concerns over what the assessment's going to cost, but I think it'll be interesting to see how it plays out on the Shirley side of things. But at this point, I'm not going to worry about it, because it's kind of out of our hands.
Okay. So that was the update, unless through the chair, anybody else, if I missed anything for today, for just the FY25 snapshot as to where we're at.
No, I think that's a good snapshot. We have capital tonight, so as you said, we'll look at DPW, and then I think by Christmas we should have all of our recommendations done on the capital side of things.
And for those who, if you can't make the meeting at 5, it's DPW. The DPW director's presentation is already on the budget page and the capital planning page, if you want to check that out as some other info. But he'll be presenting that this afternoon.
Thank you, Robert. All right, so next item is the content for the budget directive for FY 2025.
So again, Mr. Chair, through you, I'm a firm believer in not reinventing the wheel, and most folks and most of our departments, there are a few new departments, but most of our departments are aware of the process and that they receive this directive that has all of the deadlines and dates along with their budget template from the town accountant to prepare their budget. As I mentioned, that'll go out tomorrow. It's due December 29th. What we're seeing, we're going to ask all departments to prepare a level service budget using FY24 as the benchmark. We're stressing the same language of looking for efficiencies and savings and reductions when possible. We're recommending that they do not do anything with the COLA, as that will be determined. That process will be more in the February range. I also I'm going to put, and I wanted to ask everybody here, we didn't last year, but I think we should cut to the chase. This is my opinion, but and just put no new personnel for FY25. And the reason being is the town, and we appreciate, has committed to some new personnel positions, which is great. We have a couple that remain vacant, which through hiring challenges or what have you. And I just think, and I've just sort of discussed this with the departments, and I'm not aware of any personnel either, new personnel needs from departments, but I just think this year, and I defer to all of you, it would just make it, I think, easier and to focus more at the issue if we take a year of no personnel.
I agree with that. I think the amount of financial impact that a new personnel has, because when you start looking at benefits and pensions and everything else that go along with that, it's over $1 million per employee by the time that position runs out. I think it was 10 years, the example that we were given. So yeah, let's see if we can slow down on that front. I will caution, though, I think it's also worth having conversations, even if it's outside of the budget directive, of potential needs for personnel changes over the next 2 to 3 years, just so we can be mindful of that as we move forward, because the organization continues to change with the challenges of the day, and some departments might actually require a new person in the next year or two, but at least it would give us some insight to that.
Yes, and then there's just language in there because we remain in a period of transition, as everybody does. We're still seeing, the higher inflationary costs, the supply chain issues, overall costs, that also people are personally seeing as well. So I didn't know if there was any other concepts we wanted to convey. I will say that what I'm calling right now the two wild cards, but I don't believe that they warrant or need to be put in the directive at this point. One is we're still working to understand the budget impact. We're going to be leaving the Minuteman Neshoba Health Group to go to Maya. And since then, now Minuteman Neshoba Health Group, there's another meeting coming up, may actually dissolve. And so there's that piece that we need to get some more info on. And then the second one that I mentioned were the school assessments that don't have anything to do with this budget directive for departments, but those are the two big variables right now. So I will stop talking. I don't know if there's anything else for the directive. You'll all get a copy. Kurt, it will go to the FinCom, the select board. And then, as I mentioned, Barbara and I and Carly will get everything on the 29th of December. And I think we have like 10 days or we have a short window to get it all together, and then it'll be transmitted to everybody and we'll be really off to the races.
One quick question, Robert. Just so we authorized was it a part-time or full-time building inspector, correct? last year?
It was a full-time assistant. Yep.
Okay, and have they come on board?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. And then the town social worker is the other, is that the position that we still
Yeah.
haven't filled?
That one has been filled as well. That was
Oh,
filled.
has it? Okay,
Yeah.
good.
There's one position for the town manager select board office that is about to, that process and to fill that, is about to happen. There are some vacancies, which when you talk, there are some vacancies in the police department driven by some
Correct.
medical issues and what have you. But overall, I think we're in pretty good shape.
Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Robert.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so those are all of our action items on the agenda for this afternoon. Next is our scheduling of the next meeting. So we usually do monthly, and I know between now and the holidays, we're not going to be getting the budgets back. Is it worth meeting in December, or should we push to January?
I think, my 2 cents, I think January would make sense.
I'm
I
okay
agree.
with either.
I agree.
I agree.
All right, so let's see. I'm trying to remember when we planned the first budget presentation.
The 24th of January is the budget presentation.
Okay,
Do you want to, what does, like, I'm just throwing it out there, Thursday, the 11th of January at 2 on Zoom?
give me 1 second.
Uh,
That works for me.
That works for me.
so, just the draft budget goes out to everyone on January 12th. So do we want to meet the next week? So that would be in between, like, the week of the 15th, people will have had a chance to look at the budget, and then it's before the form.
So that would be the 18th?
Yeah, we can switch days of the week if we have to, because
Yeah,
I'm assuming, Robbie, you want to have a specific meeting around the budget presentation itself.
right. As it stands, I see 3 items for the next agenda. One would be content and format for the budget presentation. One would be initial discussion by this group of the FY25 budget draft 1. And the third thing, I think by then we'll have some more detail and update regarding the school assessments.
Okay. Yeah, let's do the 18th then, if that works for you, Kurt.
Yes.
Okay.
And we'll continue with the Zoom only format, obviously, for 2 o'clock.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Great,
The only way I can fit this meeting is to block an hour on my work calendar, so.
Yep.
got it.
Even
Same,
though I'm in the bunker on a bridge, I don't have time to drive down and then come back because I have a 3 o'clock meeting. All right, excellent. So I think that's everything for today. Open up to any questions or comments before we adjourn. No? All right, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn at 2:54.
I'll second.
All right, roll call the vote. Ms. Antonellis,
Aye.
Ms. Tierney,
Aye.
Ms. Cooper,
Hi.
Mr. Friskowski,
Aye.
and Mr. Pompriand.
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Thanks, everyone. Great meeting today. We covered a lot of stuff. Thanks for everyone's efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.